What's going on, everyone? It's Mike with This Old Hot Rod. I appreciate you guys coming back, checking out the channel, seeing what we're working on today. What we're working on today is we're working on the transmission tunnel portion of the firewall. The car, as you guys know, this is better known as the working man's hot rod. The car is a 1930-31 Ford Model A two-door sedan. If you guys have been following along, I think this is episode like 17, 18 maybe. Hopefully we're winding down. We're getting pretty close to being, wrapped up with this build. I had grabbed a transmission tunnel that I had purchased from someone at some point in time, and I had said at the end of the video, I'm just gonna build my own. Well, during the editing process, I was looking at the transmission tunnel as it was sitting in the car, and as I'm looking at it, I was saying that there was a lot of space between the top of the transmission and where the top of the transmission tunnel was, and it wasn't quite the right shape. As I'm editing the videos, and I do this a lot, as I'm editing the videos, I'm kind of like a third person. I'm one of you guys watching the video, and I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe that would actually be pretty good or beneficial because there's enough space where the shifter would fit under there, because there's going to be linkage involved. So I thought, you know what, after I get the main portion of the firewall done, I'm going to revisit the transmission tunnel and see if it actually would work. So what I ended up doing, it was kind of two pieces welded together. So that actually came from Beading Products is the name of the company that built that. Whoever purchased it originally, that's where they purchased it from. So I ended up taking the second portion of that, the back half where it would have gone over the drive shaft tube, I cut that off. So I just have like that main wedge, and I slid it back further, and it actually fits the opening pretty good. So I have the main firewall that I built on last week's episode. I now have about an 8-inch space between that and the front edge of that Beading Products transmission tunnel. And I drilled some holes and I got my clecos set in place. The next step is to create a template for the space where I need to create the metal, and then once that's done, I'll get everything tacked and set in place and welded in place, and then the front floors will be essentially done on this car. So today we're working on tying in the transmission tunnel to the firewall, and I'm going to show you guys where I'm at, and we'll start off from there. Alright, can you see me? Yeah, you can see me. So this is what I'm working on. This is my transmission tunnel. This is that Beading Products transmission tunnel that I showed you guys on 2 videos ago. At the end of the video, I had said I was going to build one myself. Well, the more I looked at it, like I had said while I was doing the editing process, I thought, you know what? If I remove this portion and move it back, it may actually work out pretty good. So now what I need to do is I need to fill in this space here in front of it. So between the transmission tunnel and the firewall. Firewall was last week's video. I cleaned up some metal, got everything ready, kind of like tacked everything in place. So this thing is essentially where it's going to spend the rest of its life, I hope. I got some tape, and we are going to create my template, and I'm going to get that transferred over onto a piece of metal, and then get that piece of metal shaped up in my English wheel or my slip roll, and we'll get it trimmed down and cut to fit. I don't always make templates out of tape, but I thought today I would. Thought maybe it might be a little bit easier than messing with thick paper. And so far it's proving to be correct. Alright, we got our template. Now I want to get it laid out on a piece of metal. Now obviously it's going to be close, but it's not going to be exact. I'm going to go a little bit larger on my metal when I cut it. I'd rather have to cut it down a little bit than try to recreate a whole nother piece or add to it. We'll do the best we can and try to get this piece made before the end of the video. Let's go. So what I created was about a 1-inch flange all the way around. I'm going to try to create that flange with my bead roller, and I'll show you as I go. Off the top of my head, I don't know what dies I'm going to use yet because I don't really use my bead roller all that much. But we'll figure it out. There's that. I'm going to fine tune this a little bit. That's what it looks like. Nothing fancy. Alright, now I gotta get it cut out. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'll use my jump shear on these edges here, and then the rest of it I'll just use my plasma cutter. It's just WD-40. I spray the blade every now and then, like any tool. I'm trying to prevent it from getting dull if I can help it. Alright, let's get the rest of it cut out with the plasma cutter, and these little edges I'll do with my cutoff wheel. Alright, so I got my piece of metal cut out. It's always a little nerve-wracking when you're working on stuff like this that has to have shapes, like multiple shapes, complex stuff, you know, because you don't want to screw up, you don't want to waste the metal. And that's definitely the situation here. I always get a little nervous doing stuff like this. I feel like I'm going to screw it up, you know. But I guess that's how you learn. And that's what we're doing here. We're learning. Alright, so I got my piece marked, driver's side, passenger side, just so I make sure I don't flip it over the wrong way. I'm going to run this through my slip roll first, and then I'm going to check it on the car. So obviously, like, all these areas here are going to be flanges, but I'm not going to get those broke until the end. I'll run those, like I said, through my bead roller and kind of use my bead roller as a tipping die. So I'm going to grab my slip roll. I got to wheel that over here, and we'll get to work. This is my piece, and I need to make it so it's obviously rounded this way. Now I could probably just bend it by hand, but I don't want to do that. Alright, so I'm kind of picking away at this. You can see I got some shape in this panel now. I'm kind of learning this tool, so I don't really use this all that often. I know the premise of the tool, I just don't really use it all that often. The only time I use it's when I'm doing stuff like this. So what I'm doing is I'm feeding this metal in. I'm kind of going backwards, but I'm feeding this metal in kind of in 3 sections. So I'm doing this section here, the center section, and then the other section. This end of the slip roll is wider than this end, so I have this one tightened up, so it's pinching it tighter, so it's going to create a shorter radius. On this end, it's open more, so it's not pinching it as tight, so therefore it's really not, it's not cramming the metal together, so it's letting it expand and be a larger radius. I guess the best way for me to describe it. So what I'm doing is I got this a little bit loose on this side. I'm cranking it slowly, and I'm turning it as I go. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. I'm trying to keep it even with the actual slip roll. So here it's going to be sideways, in the middle section it'll be parallel to it, and on this section it'll be like that. So I'm trying to keep it kind of always straight, and that's what's giving me the shape I need. You can't just run it straight through, it'll twist it funny. You can feel it bind. Just like that. So that's how I created this shape. So now what I need to do is I need to start planning my flanges. So that's really quick. So that's what just goes to show you, spend a little bit of money on a tool. I know this is a big tool and my shop's pretty good size, but you can buy a shorter tool. You can buy a 24-inch slip roll and do the same exact thing if you decide to go that route. Or you can just bend it over a piece of pipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating these flanges, and in order to do that, I can break these two with my box pan brake. I can break the bottom ones. That's easy. I'll do that at the end. What I want to do is I want to work on this flange right here first. I don't know that I'll have to do anything on the shorter radius flange where it meets the transmission tunnel. I think it should just kind of overlap it. So it's mainly just breaking this edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my bead roller, and I'm going to get this set in the bead roll and see if we can start tipping this edge and start hopefully getting it fit onto the car. And that'll be it for the floors. Fingers crossed. Alright, so I have my bead roller here. Right-handed, so I'm going to spin this around. Now this is my cutoff piece from the inside arch on my tunnel. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just do a quick line, and I'm going to use this as a test panel just to see how the edge is going to tip. So I'm going to roughly do 1 inch, which is about what it is on the transmission tunnel. Like that. Now I'm not really positive what dies to use. Like I said, I'm not real proficient with the bead roller, but I've done this a few times, and I just don't always remember how I did it, you know. So that's my first pass. Now I'm kind of pulling up on the panel as I go. Alright guys, it's getting there. Slowly. Alright, I'm going to get the hammer out and start pounding this flat and try to get this straight and see how it's kind of curving funny. So I need to get that flat, and then I haven't done this edge yet either. What I'm going to do now is, you can kind of see the edges are flaring up. I have not done the center section yet. That's on the bump out where the distributor is. So what I need to do, you can kind of see how they're starting to bend a little bit funny. I need to get this broke at a straight edge and kind of get it flat, straight up and down. So if I was to hold it like this, I need it to be just flat, straight up and down. So it'll go press right up against the firewall. And I'm gonna see if I can get this shaped just using my railroad track. I'm gonna gently start folding it over. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to really hold this up against the flat portion of my railroad track. I'm not trying to stretch the metal at all, I'm just trying to bend it flat. So it's still got a little bit of a goofy shape to it. I'll move that for now. Getting better. I'm gonna go just fit it in the car and see what it looks like so far. Alright, well I think you can see we're kind of headed in the right direction, I think, you know. I mean, it obviously has to come down. The reason why is I haven't broke the flanges on the bottom yet. Once I do that, I think it'll sit down, you know, that inch. And then the next section we need to address is this flange here. It may be easier to just cut it off. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get these two bottom edges broke right now. And then I'm gonna get it to sit down a little bit further, and then we'll start creeping up on this line to get this thing set up against the firewall completely and see where we're at. We're heading in the right direction. Still got a little bit of work to do on it, but I'm happy so far the way it's coming out. It'll be nice to get this in the car and set where it needs to be. Like I said, it's gonna be kind of a big deal. Alright, let's get this edge broke up. Alright, so that's where we're at with this. Like I said, now we'll kind of get it sitting down in the car, and then we'll start creeping up on this front edge here in the middle where the bump out is for the distributor. This needs to come down some, but it's not going to because of this. We're getting closer. That definitely helped. So this is going to wrap around the center section, but what I realized is I need to trim a little bit off the back of this. I'm going to trim off about 1/4 of an inch because it's a little too long. And if you remember when I started laying it out, I said I was going to go a little bit larger, and that's exactly what I did. So by trimming this down about 1/4 of an inch, it's going to actually make this radius larger. Will then allow it to sit down a little bit because I'm about 1/4 of an inch high on the back where the flange is going to meet the floor of the car. So I'm going to trim off 1/4 of an inch just using a cutoff wheel, and we're going to get it fit in again and see how it fits. But I'm definitely getting close. This is where we're at. If I press it in place here on this side, and hold it down and press it in place on this side, I think we're pretty close. I'm gonna get the metal cleaned up real quick, get a few holes drilled on this lower flange and then around the top and get some clecos in place. Oh, Allie's calling. Next thing I got to do is cover the end of this up. So it's going to do just a flange with a half moon and then trace that, cut it out and get it welded. All right, there's the piece. This is the cutout from my firewall. So I'm going to do that right there. Get it traced out. Let me get that cut out real quick and we'll get that put in place, tack welded, and then we're good. All right, so I am pretty happy with that. Fire up the welder and get that tacked in place. And that'll wrap it up. That is the last bit of metal fabrication for the inside of the car. I'm extremely happy about that. You know, this isn't pretty, the back of this, but it's functional. The seats, I think, are going to be, you know, I guess there should be plenty enough room behind the back of the transmission tunnel in the front of the seats for them to do whatever. Maybe they'll build a box, cup holder or something, who knows. So as you guys know, this section here, this was purchased at some point. I don't recall where and when, but I had this already. It was in my shipping container. Bitchin Products was the manufacturer who made this. You guys saw me make this portion of the firewall. I'm really happy with the way it came out. What I'm gonna do is I still need to weld this flange here to get these two pieces together. And at that point, what I think I'll do is I'm just gonna use self-tapping screws, and I'm gonna screw both of these pieces. It'll be one at that point to the car, to the floor of the car. So this entire piece will be removable for the person when it comes time to do their shifter. That will make their life easy. And in the future, if they want to weld it in, then by all means they would weld it in. I think they'd be crazy too. I think they should leave it so it's removable. But you know, that's up to the next person. At this point, like I just said, the inside sheet metal work on the car is done. And next video is going to be patch panels. I'm really looking forward to getting to work on the patch panels on the car. Then at that point, that'll be the last bit of sheet metal work that needs to be done. And that's going to be a good day when that's done. When that gets done, the body will come off and I'll get to work on my radius rods. Once my radius rods are done, kind of be able to put everything back together, button up any loose ends that they may be. Like I said, maybe do some headlights, I'm not sure. Certainly not going to be wired, but throw some headlights on. I got some 42 to 48 Ford taillights that I think would look good on the car. And yeah, and that'll be pretty much it. It'll be sayonara. All right, everyone. Well, that was a successful afternoon in the shop. Early day at work equals a long day in the garage. I'm all right with that. That pretty much wraps up the sheet metal work inside the car, minus maybe some welding. The inside of the car, as far as I'm concerned, is done. I'm going to get to work next on the patch panels and put the car up on the rear axle and the front axle, kind of get it up as high as I can. Get the patch panels going on the car, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. It's a lot of work, but it's the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's the reason why I'm looking forward to it. After the patch panels are done, I'll get the body lifted off the car, and then it's going to be time to do my radius rods. Yeah, I got to essentially build a mount, so it's like another cross member, like similar to the transmission cross member. Something significant that will hold the rear radius rods. Because it's an open drive line, I need to create a torque rod. Years ago when I built my sedan, I built that with an open drive line, and I built a mount that goes on the center section of the banjo, and it has a Heim joint already on it. I didn't end up using it on that car. I ended up going a different route. It's still open drive, but I ended up building essentially ladder bars. So I'm going to use what I have, and what that does is you have your triangulation for your suspension, which is the radius rod. It's going to hold everything in line and allow the rear axle to move, but you don't want the rear axle under load. You don't want the rear axle to twist, and that torque rod is going to eliminate that. That needs to be done before the drive shaft is put in, before I sell the car. So I just want to make sure, like I said, I want to build the car right. Even though I'm not keeping it, I want to build the car right, because essentially my name is on the car. And the next person who buys the car, I want them to be happy with it, and I want them to know that essentially it's built the way it was supposed to be built. So that's going to be it. I'm going to wrap up this video here, and I just want to say thanks again. I know I sound like a broken record, but thank you again to everybody who's been following along. Just really feeling the support, and it's pretty cool. You guys are motivating me. You guys are giving me a lot of confidence just with all the kind words and the positive responses and comments on the videos. You guys keep watching. I'll keep making videos. This thing's going to be out. My 34 is going to be in here next. I'm looking forward to getting the 34 down here, and Allie's looking forward to me to getting the 34 out of the top garage, because that's going to kind of be her area now. And she's looking forward to having a space of her own, because clearly I have a space of my own, as you guys know. So thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.